Malcolm X was an American Muslim minister and a human rights activist who had a very large impact in the lives of many during the Black Power movement. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an American Baptist minister, activist, humanitarian, and a leader in the African American civil rights movement. Dr. King had a tremendous impact on the lives of many who followed him through the Black Power movement. Eldridge Cleaver was an American writer and political activist who later became a main influence in the Black Power movement due to his ranking in the Oakland chapter of the Black Panther Party. Stokely Carmichael, a Trinidadian in the 1960s and occupied with the Black Power movement. Huey Percy Newton was an African-American political activist and also a revolutionary. He co-founded the Oakland chapter of the Black Panther Party in 1966 alongside Bobby Seale. Bobby Seale was an American political activist who helped Huey Percy Newton found the Oakland chapter of the Black Panther Party in 1966.
The role of the Black Panther Party in the Black freedom struggle was very significant in a number of ways. And one of those ways was that it really forced Americans, both black and white, to think about a black struggle for freedom that went beyond civil and legal rights. And so the Black Panther Party was very interested in showing the connection between the experience of black people at home and the experience of colonized people abroad. So it had a very powerful anti-colonial, anti-imperialist aspect to it. And I think people forget that. They think about oh yeah, the Black Panthers carried guns. Well, the idea that black people needed to protect their own communities was a very powerful aspect of that, but it was part of a larger critique of American politics. And the Black Panthers argued that people of color in the United States were a colonized group. What Malcolm X says is we are nonviolent with people who are nonviolent with us. And that is a small part of the legacy of Malcolm X. Malcolm X was very much an activist for human rights, for black self-determination, and also in a really important way, the idea that black Americans should love themselves, should see the value in their own identities. And he made an argument that should sound familiar to many Americans. It certainly dates back to the 18th century, that people brought here to the United States from Africa have been brainwashed, right? Their minds have been colonized. And so, in our popular culture, we just ignore all that stuff and we're like, yes, Malcolm X was for violence, but really Malcolm X was for armed self-defense. So when Malcolm X was a member of the Nation of Islam, he was very influenced by their cosmology, their teaching that black people had been kind of ruined by white supremacy, and only by separating from whites could black people develop healthy perspectives and healthy and strong communities. So that kind of separatism was really part of the teaching of the Nation of Islam. When he went to Mecca and was introduced to the transnational Muslim world, that really helped him. That wasn't the only factor. But
when I was blessed to make a trip or a pilgrimage, a religious pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca, where I met many people from all over the world, plus spent many weeks in Africa, trying to broaden my own scope and get more of an open mind to look at the problem as it actually is. One of the things that I realized, and I realized this even before going over there, was that our African brothers have gained their independence faster than you and I here in America have. They've also gained recognition and respect as human beings much faster than you and I. Just 10 years ago on the African continent, our people were colonized. They were suffering all forms of colonization, oppression, exploitation, degradation, humiliation, discrimination, and every other kind of Asian. And in a short time, they have gained more independence, more recognition, more respect as human beings than you and I have. And you and I live in a country which is supposed to be the citadel of education freedom, justice, democracy, and all of those other pretty sounding words. So it was our intention to try and find out what was our African brothers doing to get results, so that you and I could study what they had done and perhaps gain from that study or benefit from their experiences.
And Malcolm X was somebody who really was committed to huge social transformation and dedicated his life to that. He was a master teacher, and people were so affected by him when they heard his speeches, read his texts, listened to him speak. He was transformative for other people. And I think he's important for American history because he also just kind of represents the kind of visionary leader for human freedom that I think we all need to know about. Like, we need to really, kind of see American history from his perspective, that yes, the United States should be taken before the World Court at the United Nations on charges of, white supremacy and the kinds of violent acts that have been institutionalized in our own system. So he really challenged some kind of fundamental beliefs that we have in order that we might become a better place and that people could achieve a better life. That helped him kind of broaden his perspective on what it meant to, do the kind of work that he did. So he became not necessarily inclusive of whites, but he came to publicly state that white people did have a role in the struggle for black freedom. The one thing that's so important about him, I think, is his emphasis on human rights as opposed to just civil rights. King's political views are rooted in the Christian faith. He's very much informed by biblical texts, Old and New Testament. He was also very influenced by Mohandas Gandhi and the understanding that to use violence in any kind of situation is never the right answer, that it's always better to use nonviolence and to kind of sacrifice.
So Dr. King and his associates got together and said, this is inhuman. We will boycott your bus system. Now understand what a boycott is. A boycott is a passive act. It is the most passive political act that anyone can commit, a boycott. Because what the boycott was doing was simply saying, we will not ride your buses. No sort of antagonism. He was not even verbally violent. He was peaceful. Dr. King's policy was that nonviolence would achieve the gains for black people in the United States. His major assumption was that if you are nonviolent, if you suffer, your opponent will see your suffering and will be moved to change his heart. That's very good. He only made one fallacious assumption. In order for nonviolence to work, your opponent must have a conscience. The United States has none.
Here in the South, yes, there were Black Panthers in the South. Atlanta had a very significant Black Panther chapter. Charlotte had a very interesting Black Panther chapter, and in fact, those folks sometimes came to Asheville. Winston-Salem had a very interesting and active Black Panther chapter. Durham was a hotbed of Black power politics. Durham Black students at Duke organized and created the Malcolm X University, which was a university for Black students to learn Black history and kind of a Black focused system of education, and that ends up in Greensboro. It moves, but there was most certainly a Black power presence in the South and in North Carolina. Ben Chavis, he was a long-time political activist, and he was a member of the Black Panther Party and one of the activists who was incarcerated for some stuff that went down in Wilmington in '68. What is important is for students to know that the Black Panther Party was not just this gun-toting, group of thugs running around causing trouble, shooting it out with the police, but that the Black Panthers also had a vision for how to transform society. And their vision included white people, It was a kind of new left perspective that incorporated Maoism and Marxism and Leninism, but also, philosophy, to try and think of ways that all people could be kind of emancipated from a world system of capitalism that keeps a lot of folks down. So the Black Panther Party, worked with white people. They did not support, they did not promote separatism like we like to think that they did, but they really didn't. They were very focused on helping communities develop their own resources. And again, like Malcolm X, really challenged assumptions about power and how things should be here in the United States. Many women involved in the Black Panther Party, and they're kind of often sort of overshadowed by figures like Huey Newton and Eldridge Cleaver, but women like Elaine Brown were very significant in kind of charting the course for the Black Panther Party and helping to lead it.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long